Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. I've got one of my sponsors, i-80 Gold, and they are one of my top picks as well. I think the company is a cornerstone holding for investors that want exposure to gold and other metals. And today they had some great news out, so I'm glad to have Ewan Downey on the horn to talk about that. Thanks for joining us, Ewan.
Yeah, great to be on again, Al.
Well, let's start out with the headline. Let me make sure I get it correct. i-80 Gold announces new high-grade CRD discoveries at Ruby Hill and expands Ruby Deeps and Lower Jack gold horizons. Results include 226 grams of silver, 10% lead, 9.7% zinc, and 0.5 grams per ton gold over 8.4 meters. Also 11.6 grams per ton gold over 13.1 meters. Wow, that's some great stuff there, Ewan.
Yeah, no, the drill program continues to go fabulously well at Ruby Hill in both the gold mineralized zones and the CRD mineralization and skarn mineralization. Actually, the blackjack drilling that we also announced today is some of our first drilling down into the deposit right underneath the Archimedes pit. So we're seeing mineralization in every single target, and pretty big extension drilling. So the drilling in the east hilltop and the west breccia area, the hilltop breccia, extends mineralization about 350 meters or 400 meter strike length to now about 750 meter strike length. So pretty significant increase in the footprint that we are drilling off, and where we continue to get really good looking results in our drilling as we continue. We're up to about hole 30 of the program now. We released the first 9 or 10 today.
You know, sometimes I think people don't really understand how valuable that rock is, Ewan. If you sort of had to put this in gold terms, what kind of grade would you be looking at there? It's got to be very high.
Yeah, locally, some of the hits, especially in the upper hilltop, the core part of the upper hilltop area, we're getting on a gold equivalent about 100 grams. So
Wow.
the mineralization is really rich in a gold equivalent basis. But I'd expect the average is probably trending somewhere closer to about 10 grams gold equivalent, 10 to 15 in that area, depending on the zone. The skarn zones tend to be less gold and silver rich and more zinc rich, where the CRD zones are more gold rich, well, with a bit more gold, but more silver rich. And then, of course, we're drilling the Carlin zone. So the lower jack intercept is a Carlin zone that sits right underneath the base metals. That was the 11 grams over 13 meters. And then we also announced today that in hole 9, we were about 200 meters step out from our Ruby Deeps deposit, and we hit nearly 10 grams over 8 meters there as well, within a broader intercept. I think it was about 12 or 13 meters of 7.5, 8 grams, which is more typical of the Ruby Deeps deposit. So that suggests that we should be able to extend that mineralized zone by at least 200 meters. And that's
in Ruby Deeps.
That's Ruby Deeps. So this year's program, we're going to be focused initially right now, we're focused a bit more on the CRD and the skarn mineralization because we want to move forward with a plan of retrofitting the plant to become a flotation plant. And then the second half of this year, we'll start doing the extension drilling on the Ruby Deeps. So our last hole from last year's program and hole 9 of this year's program, there's about a 200 meter gap now in there. We have to infill with drilling. So that'll add some pretty good gold ounces. And then if you recall, right at the end of last year, we had a very strong intercept, 12 grams over, I think, 15 meters or 10 meters of just over 12 grams in what we call the 428 zone. And there's only 2 holes into that. So we expect to drill later this year from in the pit. We expect to do more drilling in that zone and upgrade that to resource as well. So we expect to add some pretty significant Carlin gold ounces this year too.
You know, when you talk about all that, I think sometimes it might get lost on people how big and powerful the systems are that you have. So you've got this old pit, Archimedes, that was mined by the majors. And then right below it, you got 428. You'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
Right beside it to the west, you've got the 426. Right below that, you've got the Ruby Deeps. To the immediate south of the pit, you've got the Bonanza CRD. And over to the east, you've got the Blackjack. All of this is probably associated somehow geologically, but wow, that's just amazing to have all that mineralization.
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable project in that sense that we expect when we get underground, we're currently working also to permit the underground development. And next year we expect to be underground, and we expect to be drilling both the gold zones and the base metal zones from the same underground mine next year, and then move forward with our development plan. So it's pretty unique that you find zinc deposits, the skarn zinc-rich deposits right beside CRD deposits that are rich in multiple metals, and then right beside that are gold deposits. So it's pretty significant or large size mineralizing system, as you mentioned. And then of course we're just in the process of taking over our next door neighbor Paycore, who have a similar deposit 2 kilometers away, and that gap between us is essentially untested. So we do think we're going to add a lot of tonnage here, and over the course of the next 24 months we expect to make some significant new discoveries as well.
And just for the non-geologist out there, part of the story is that you've got the right faulting network that goes all the way from Archimedes all the way to the end of your project and then continues on to Paycore. And so now you're consolidating this region, if you will, where you've got the right plumbing system and the right mineralization of not just the CRDs following that path of cracks in the earth, but also the gold mineralization coming up into the CRDs as well.
Yes, it's if you look at the grades of the Paycore deposit, the historic resource there, it's over, or the FAD deposit that we're just acquiring, the average gold grade is over 5 grams. Runs about 5 or 6 ounces per ton silver on top of that, and about 10 to 12% lead zinc combined, mainly zinc. So it's a pretty remarkable deposit. I think combined with what we're doing at Hilltop, we're definitely defining something that I believe is going to be a world-class mine in the next several years.
Now, also interesting, there's 2 interesting things. There's a big geophysical anomaly that kind of is mainly contained on your project, but associated with those faults going towards Paycore's ground.
Yeah, we're actually drilling that area right now, the very top end of that anomaly. We're doing some drilling there as we speak, because we did have some previously permitted drill pads. So we, in our next release, you'll see some results from some of the southern drilling that we're doing. And of course, once we get our permits in place, that I'm expecting around June, then we'll probably do a lot more step outs to the south and do some complete geophysics between ourselves and the FAD deposit, and see what kind of anomalies come out of that program and start drilling those. So it's expect to be a pretty major drill campaign. And with the acquisition of Paycore, we expect to bump up our exploration for this year from what we had previously guided.
Now, there's another interesting part, and I can't remember if it was you or Christina McCarthy from Paycore that told me about a historical hole that's kind of in between or towards that, from the FAD to the north, towards that geophysical anomaly. That was a historical hole that showed some good stuff as well.
Yeah, there's one hole, I think it was 729, that reportedly hit multiple zones of CRD mineralization and was never followed up. So whether it was a lucky one-off hole or else it was just on the edge of a larger system, that's definitely an area we will be following up in this year's program. We do have that, some of that drill core was in the old sheds on the Paycore property, on the FAD property. So we expect to do resample some of that hole. We have looked at it and we can confirm that there is mineralization in that hole. And then like to get the geophysics over that area to see what kind of anomaly shows up, and hopefully they just hit the edge of something big, and we'll prove that up this year as well.
And I don't know if your team agrees with this or not, but it sounds to me like that whole corridor could be associated to one big CRD system.
Definitely, we think they're all part of the same systems. If you look at, I know you've looked at Paycor quite a bit because you also covered them when they were around. But if you look historically at the FAD deposit and it's essentially the down-dropped extension of the largest mine in the historic mine in the district, which is called the original Ruby Hill mine. And they were sitting on a northwest striking fault structure. And that's exactly what we're drilling at Hilltop, 2 kilometers away, is a northwest striking fault structure. And the mineralization, I think before we started today, I mentioned that as we're drilling it, we're figuring it out, and we're seeing that the mineralization's in the hanging wall of the Hilltop fault. So, and geophysics, like the airborne geophysics that was done, suggests that there's multiple northwest faults between us and the FAD property, and none of those have ever been drilled. So to me, that offers a really big target for the future, and we'll see how our drill program shapes up as the year moves on.
Well, and I hope that people understand that what you're talking about really points towards predictability, so that you have a good chance of hitting with your future drilling.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that we're expecting. Is the more we understand, the more success we expect we'll have. And of course, the Paycor did not complete geophysics on their ground. They were going to do it this year, so we're going to do it, but we're also going to do that big gap between us and fill that entire area in, and just see what these structures look like, do some magnetics. We can map the north-south structures and hopefully identify some big targets for the future.
So as it sits right now, Paycor had their shareholder meeting today, and that passed for approved by their shareholders. So now what is it? Even just the court side of things that has to get done in these normal transactions?
Yeah, it takes I think about a week or two to get everything polished up. Everybody's shares who still own their Paycor shares will convert to i-80. And one morning there won't be the core won't be trading anymore. It'll just become i-80. So they'll benefit. We as you've seen over the last year, we've really seen a major increase in the volume in our stocks. We're trading about 1 million shares a day, so good liquidity. So Paycor shareholders will get good liquidity. The Paycor shareholders will get exposure to multiple assets now and processing facilities. And our shareholders get exposure to the FAD deposit that I believe is going to shape up to be a very significant, maybe of the different lenses we're drilling, it's quite possible FAD might actually end up being the biggest of those. So I know they're drilling right now. We'll take over that drill program when we have it. And visually, they're having good success in their program so far this year, and they're doing step-out drilling. So they're just making that deposit bigger and bigger, and we expect to do the same over the balance of this year.
Well, it's very rewarding for me, and obviously for you as well. You and I got into this area really early because of the work you guys were doing, and Paycor became a sponsor, and now you guys are getting together, and so I think it's a great deal for both companies. i-80 gets exposure to the Paycor ground, and it all looks like it could be part of one big system, and then the Paycor shareholders get access to all the assets you guys have. I think it's a phenomenal deal for everybody.
Yeah, we believe it was a big win-win transaction. Obviously, the shareholders, I think they had 50-something% of shareholders voted, and I believe the vote was pretty much 98.5% in favor. So resounding support of the deal between the two companies. And we expected it will become one of our material deposits that we have in our company, and in itself will I think, enhance the polymetallic opportunity that we're developing at Ruby Hill.
I know we're getting tight on time, Ewan. What's pending other than the Paycor? We've dealt with that. So you've been doing a bunch more drilling, and you have a lot more pending results as well, right?
Yes, we've completed about 75% now of the Cove decline. We're drilling underground there. We are expecting to release 2 economic studies, one for Granite Creek this year and one for Ruby Hill, the gold deposits of Ruby Hill, an initial PEA, or preliminary economic assessment. So those are 2 major studies coming out that will also include resource updates. So I think we'll see some good increases in ounces and or grade at both sites. And we're getting to the point in our development where we should be able to start underground drilling the South Pacific zone. Don't recall that that's a pretty high grade discovery we made at Granite Creek in 2021 and drilled out in 22. So we'll be starting drilling that from underground at Granite Creek here later this year. Maybe even this quarter we'll start drilling it, and that's a deposit that we think is going to be basically, for that project, it's flagship deposit that will be mined at Granite Creek, and hopefully with the underground drilling we'll be able to start mining it as early as late this year, early next year, and that should really change our cash flow situation coming out of the Granite Creek site.
And from the CRD, Bonanza CRD, I'm calling it a Bonanza CRD now, Ewan. The Bonanza CRD, you're drilling there now, and you've got a bunch more pending results?
Yeah, we've got a lot of additional results coming out of the CRD drilling that we're doing at the Hilltop zone. Now that we're in the process of taking over Paycor, we expect to start releasing results from FAD. And then the initial results starting to flow out of the Cove project. Cove is an almost 11 gram gold deposit that we drilled out in Premier years ago. So this is the first drilling we've seen in that property for at least half a decade. And you know, it's looking really good. We are expecting our AGM is the week after next, and we're planning to have an investor day presentation at our AGM. So that's when hopefully we'll see the first of the results coming out of Cove, and we'll probably at that talk about the Paycor acquisition in greater detail. And with that discussion, we'll probably start to announce some results from their program as well. As some pretty exciting stuff is coming out of that program. So I'll say in 2 weeks, you'll get some more news, Al.
Good to hear. I always like the smile on your face when you talk about the Bonanza CRD. It's like your favorite child there, Ewan.
Yeah.
But you love all your children.
Yeah, I love them all.
I'm going to let you go, Ewan. Let me wrap it up. I know you got another call to make. So thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, Al.
Okay. So, folks, I've said for a long time that I think that i-80 Gold has the potential to grow from its $800 million valuation to a company with multi-billion-dollar valuation. And as Ewan was describing the various assets that they have, I mean, just look at Cove, which he mentioned, 11 grams per ton and over 1 million ounces. Those kind of deposits are not easy to find, and that's kind of the third one on their list. The second one he talked about was Granite Creek, and at Granite Creek, right beside them to the north, is a 25 million ounce gold mine and deposit. This is definitely an elephant country, and that South Pacific zone that he mentioned has got excellent grade, excellent continuity, is still wide open to the north. And as they go deeper into that, they're getting higher grades. That's a tremendous project on its own, a company maker on its own. They started 2022 with that being their prime asset. And then Ruby Hill just came bursting onto the scene, and they found this Bonanza CRD, the Ruby Deeps, the gold deposit, the 426 gold deposit, the 428 gold deposit that are all likely associated on the western side of the pit. On the southern side of the pit, they've got this Bonanza CRD, and to the east, they've got the Skarn deposit. It's a tremendous project, and collectively, they've got not only these deposits, but then they've got the fast track to mining and the mining facilities to be an important producer. Again, I think that this is a cornerstone holding for investors that want exposure to a gold mining company in Nevada, and they've got tremendous prospects to grow from their $800 million valuation into a multi-billion-dollar company. On that note, as always, my shows are for information purposes only. It's important for you to speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions, and do your homework. Go to their website, check out their news releases, check out their corporate presentation. Go to my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, where you can find a bunch of interviews that I've done with you and Downey. On that note, have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.